The spaceship trembled as it cut through the stars, leaving behind the scars of 1,000 light-years traveled. On board the Venus Horizon, a military vessel turned transport for the most dangerous of intergalactic prisoners, the atmosphere was tense. Crew members walked briskly, their boots echoing through the hallways, minds occupied with the task at hand, delivering a bounty of captured aliens to a far-off research station. The Venus Horizon had seen its fair share of unspeakable creatures, but nothing prepared the crew for what they were about to encounter. It began with a crash landing. The ship was nearing a desolate planet on the edge of the Vigor Nebula when the alarms went off. The artificial gravity flickered, followed by a sudden, violent jolt. Crew members stumbled, struggling to stay upright as the vessel's engines groaned, attempting to regain control. Captain Kale and his team rushed to the bridge, but before they could make sense of the chaos, a strange screech echoed from below. It wasn't a sound that belonged to anything human or known to any of the crew. It was wild, guttural alien. "Report!" Captain Kale barked, his voice sharp as steel. "We've got an unidentified craft crashing into the cargo hold," Lieutenant Drex said, her eyes wide as she monitored the sensors. "It's coming in fast, Captain." Before the captain could respond, a booming crash followed by a deafening silence filled the ship. The impact rattled the hull, and the ship listed dangerously to one side. "Get to the cargo hold," Kale ordered as he pushed his way past his crew, heading to the lower decks. When they reached the cargo bay, a group of medical officers were already tending to an injured creature. It was a bird-like alien, its wings twisted and broken, covered in patches of blue-green feathers. Its beak was cracked, and its wide, haunting eyes glowed faintly under the dim lights of the bay. It didn't look like a threat, just a dying, helpless creature. But its exotic beauty and unfamiliar biology made the officers uneasy. Dr. Eleanor Sykes, the ship's chief medical officer, knelt beside the alien with a frown. She was used to treating humans and known species, not these kinds of intergalactic anomalies. The alien was bleeding profusely, a dark, viscous fluid leaking from its side. Its chest rose and fell with a strained rhythm. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Is it a threat?" Lieutenant Drex asked, voice low. She had been on the front lines of too many intergalactic conflicts to feel any sympathy for creatures that didn't belong to Earth. "Not a threat. At least, not yet," Dr. Sykes replied, her fingers gently pressing against the alien's body. "But it's in bad shape. The wounds are severe. Should we just let it die?" Kale asked, already knowing the answer from his men. "We don't have time to waste on something we can't even communicate with." The crew agreed. They all had missions to complete, and this alien bird, with its injuries, was a distraction they didn't need. But Sykes hesitated. "Can we stabilize it?" she asked, her voice softer. She was a healer, by instinct, and the sight of the creature suffering pulled at something deep inside her. "It's a waste of resources," Drex said. "We're not a zoo. It's just an alien." But Sykes couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this alien. Her instincts as a doctor were screaming at her to help, but her medical training knew that helping it might mean taking an enormous risk. The creatures they encountered in deep space were often unpredictable, dangerous, even hostile. And this one was no exception. "I'm going to help it," she said, her voice firm. "I'll need you to get me everything I need. I'll take full responsibility." The captain opened his mouth to protest, but saw something in Sykes' expression, a determination that he recognized from his own career. He sighed, resigned. "Fine, but you'd better be right, Doctor." The hours passed in a blur of medical work. Sykes and her team stabilized the alien, using techniques that were based on human knowledge but adapted to its alien biology. Her mind raced as she tried to understand what she was working on. The creature's anatomy was like nothing she had ever seen before. Its circulatory system was completely different, the bones in its wings more rigid and complex than anything known to Earth's avian species. Through it all, the bird remained unconscious, its breathing shallow but steady. As Sykes continued her work, she couldn't shake the nagging sense that she was not just saving a life, but perhaps unlocking a mystery of the universe itself. Then a breakthrough. As Sykes administered a final injection to stabilize the creature's vitals, it blinked awake, its iridescent eyes locking with hers. The room was silent for a moment as they both studied one another. The alien's beak clicked gently, a sound that was almost like a sigh. It reached out with one clawed hand, and to everyone's surprise, it gently rested its touch on Sykes' arm. She froze. "Doctor," Kale's voice was tight with caution. "Do you understand what it's doing?" Sykes didn't answer right away. She was too stunned by the sudden shift in the alien's behavior. The bird was no longer acting like a simple, wounded creature. It was acknowledging her, almost as if it recognized her effort, her humanity. Without warning, the creature spread its wings wide. Its form seemed to shimmer, as though the air around it was vibrating with energy. And then just as suddenly it spoke, not in words, but in an image, a vision, transmitted directly into Sykes' mind. The picture was clear, an entire planet, lush and green, with alien cities in the sky, surrounded by vast interstellar colonies. The bird was not just any alien. It was a protector, a messenger sent from a far-off civilization. Its people had been in hiding, evading capture by hostile forces. And this injured bird, had been sent to warn them of an impending invasion. Sykes stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had just received a message, a plea for help. Before she could react, the bird slowly stood, its wings fluttering gently as it spoke again, this time in clear words. "Help save my world." The Venus Horizon's mission had changed in an instant. What had once been a routine prisoner transport was now a desperate race to a distant world to protect a civilization from annihilation. And it was all thanks to a human doctor who, against all odds, chose to save the life of an alien no one had wanted. As Sykes prepared for the journey ahead, she knew the risks were monumental. But in the quiet of the medical bay, with the alien bird at her side, she also knew she had made the right choice. Sometimes, saving a life wasn't just about healing wounds. It was about giving hope to an entire world. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. This bird was no mere casualty. It was the key to a galaxy-wide conflict, and perhaps to the survival of an entire species.